številu. Moje ime je Sara Žermanov in sem ena izmed organizatorjev v klubu 108. Preden začnemo, bi pa rada povedala par besed o našem klubu. Klub 108 smo ustanovili oktobra 2018 po zgledu podobnih študentskih skupin iz Anglije. Pobudniki za nastanek kluba 108 si delimo globlje poglede na družbo, življenje, duhovnost in svet, v katerem živimo, ter iščemo, kako lahko naše življenje čim bolje izkoristimo in si medsebojno pomagamo pri iskanju svojega smisla ter vloge v družbi. Zato ponujamo organizirane vodene debate, različne predavanja, številne meditacije in najpomembneje druženje v sproščenem okolju in okusni hrani, ki jo sami pripravljamo. Že pridno delamo na razvijanju tem in načrtovanju dogodkov za naslednje študijsko leto 2019-2020. Planiramo, da bomo spet začeli oktobra, tako da nas spremljate še naprej na Facebooku in Instagramu, da boste izvedeli o prihajajočih dogodkih. Zdaj pa bi rada predstavila našega posebnega gosta Shubha Vilasa, ki je avtor številnih knjig, pripovedovalec zgodb, motivacijski govornik in lifestyle coach. Ima več kot 10 let izkušenj v podjetniškem usposabljanju z več kot 100 strankami po vsem svetu. Rodil se je leta 1981 na južnem delu Indijskega polotoka, diplomiral je iz elektronskega inženiringa. Kasneje se je odločil posvetiti iskanju globljega pomena v življenju in se poglobil v študij vzhodne modrosti. In postal je tudi menih ter duhovni iskalec. Po 11 letih meniškega redu se je ponovno lotil svojega poslanstva širiti radost in znanje v življenju, ki temelji na čistosti in praktičnosti svetih spisov. Shubha Vilas je bil povabljen govoriti v podjetjih Microsoft, Amazon, Google in Samsung v Ameriki. Je tudi govornik TEDxa. Poleg korporativnega sektorja je njegovo ciljno občinstvo tudi mladina. Njegovo lahkotno govorjenje in slog pisanja privablja srca ljudi po vsem svetu, priljubljen je v velikih državah, kot so Avstralija, Velika Britanija, Južna Afrika, Mauritius, Kitajska in Indija. In zdaj tudi prvič v Sloveniji, sicer majhni državi, ampak z velikim potencialom. Več o današnji temi nam bo kar sam povedal, zato prosim, da z velikim aplavzom pozdravimo našega gosta, Shubha Vilas.
This is the first introduction that I didn't understand anything about. I'm actually inspired by that because it's so embarrassing to hear about yourself. So I think anywhere in the world I'm going to go, I'm going to tell people to introduce me in Slovenian language. It's good for me. Very happy and honored to be amidst all of you here today on this hot Slovenian evening, discussing a hot topic on relationships. Wherever I travel in the world and whenever I speak about relationships, people seem to not have enough. They just feel that I should speak more and more and more. Because relationships is something that everyone is struggling with. Practically in every aspect of life, whether it is husband-wife relationships, whether it is friendship, whether it is relationship between parents and children, all sorts of relationships, there is chaos everywhere. The question is there something known as tangible relationships? Is there a possibility of having lasting relationships? Therefore, I'm speaking on this topic, secrets to lasting relationships. The idea behind talking on this topic is that practically everything in our life depends on the quality of our relationships that we have. Success in our business depends on quality of relationship we have with people. Success at home depends on the quality of relationship you have at home. Success in friendships, in colleges or schools, depends on the quality of nobody wants to be alone, obviously, and just imagine if you had all the resources in the world, but you were alone. What's the fun? What's the fun in having all the resources, but you can't share it with anybody? So today's theme, Secrets of Lasting Relationships, is actually something that will help us contemplate on our own personal relationships and the way we handle them. This topic, Secrets of Lasting Relationships, came to my mind after meeting, counseling, guiding thousands of people across the world, especially in the field of relationships. When people go through a crisis, people go through so many problems, they come running to find somebody to share their heart with, open their heart with, find some solutions to. So this is kind of the manifestation of all those years of helping people. So most of what I'm going to speak is based on my books. My books are there at the back. You can always look at them later. But let me explain to you a little bit about my style of speaking so that you understand. I like to call myself a storyteller because I feel that human beings best understand through stories. People are not really interested in philosophy. People go to sleep if you tell philosophy is. But you tell them a good story, they will immediately wake up. So I'm going to be sharing a lot of stories today as we go through this session on relationships. And through these stories, you'll find a lot of secrets, a lot of thoughts that can help you in your personal relationships. Please feel free to note them down on your mobile phones or on a notepad if you have. And towards the end of the session, we'll have time for question and answers, so we can also have a discussion. Life, for most people, it's what I call as 4 L's. Our entire life is basically 4 L. The first L is to live. Everyone wants to live, no one wants to die. Therefore, we have pharmacies, we have hospitals, we have so many ways to somehow, help us live longer. Diets, So the first thing is to live. But nobody wants to just live and do nothing. While living, you also have to learn. That means upgrade yourself. That's the second L of life, learning. So now, you have to live, you want to learn. The third most important thing is to love. Everyone wants to be loved and everyone wants to love. This is the third most important L of life. And the fourth L of life is known as leave a legacy. That means much after you are gone, people should remember you. That's what leave a legacy is. There are some people, when they die, people celebrate. They actually celebrate, they give a party. Good, this fellow died, because they trouble people so much. Nobody wants them to be around. But leaving a legacy is about touching people's hearts. So when we die, at least the kind of quality of life that we have lived and the amount of people that we have touched hearts of, they should at least be substantial. So the 4 L's of life are to live, to learn, to love, and to leave a legacy. But to leave a legacy, you cannot leave a legacy unless you really make a deep impact in people's hearts. And that happens through good relationships. Many years back I read a book. The book was called as The Dash of Life. Very interesting title. I'll explain to you what the title meant. A person, suppose, is born in, say, 1977 and he dies in 2010. So, if you look at his entire life, which is written on the tombstone, what is written? 1977-2010. So that means your whole life is that dash. The quality of the dash depends on the quality of life that you have lived. And therefore, the quality of our life depends on the quality of relationships that we have had. Relationships are like a bird. If you squeeze it too much, it dies. If you set it free, it flies. But if you give it love and affection, it stays. The question is, how much is too much? A lot of people, they want to retain relationships, but they squeeze it so badly that the relationship dies. And there are a lot of people who set the relationship completely free, and they set it so free that the relationship doesn't survive, it just flies away. So that balance, you need to put that? Yeah. Just need to put it here. I know how to. So, the quality of life depends on the quality of relationships, as I said. So here are some secrets how you can actually make relationships last and how you can have relationships that create an impact. The first secret is relationship a tool or a goal? For a lot of people, relationships are simply a tool. What do you mean by tool? That means they know how to use people. Today's times, everything is use and throw. Use a pen, once it stops working, throw it, get another pen. So practically everything in life, when it becomes use and throw, people tend to deal with relationships also as use and throw. I get somebody into my life, doesn't work, throw the person, get somebody else into my life. So this whole concept of using relationships as a tool is not a lasting concept. And therefore, we need to understand, is relationship a tool or is relationship a goal? For those who think relationships is a goal, they really look long term. They don't look from it from a short term point of view. Many people, when they look at life, life is like a puzzle. There are many pieces in a puzzle, and each one of us are like one piece in the puzzle, the jigsaw puzzle of life. So everyone has some strength and everyone has some weakness. My strength will help you with your weakness, and your strength will help me with my weakness. That's how relationships are formed. But unfortunately, what happens is people forget to look at the bigger picture and they look at only their own life. They make themselves the big picture. Let me give you an example. One time there was a peace conference, and they were some of the biggest leaders in the world were called together for this peace conference. And this was, each one of them was supposed to speak in the peace conference. So before the peace conference, they had a pre-peace conference, just a meeting of only the leaders. There was no audience. The meeting was supposed to, all the leaders who were going to speak in the peace conference were supposed to make presentations of what they want to speak. 5-minute presentations. So once all of them made their own presentations, then the time came to decide the speaking slots. Who's going to speak first, who's going to speak second, like that. So when the discussion came of the speaking slots, a big fight broke out. Everyone is fighting for the best slot, the most important slot. Can you imagine? These people have come for a peace conference, and the pre-peace conference they're having a fight. So one of them who was in that conference, he already had got his seat, he had got his speaking slot. He observed there was another very, very nice person. Really, he had some really powerful points. But he was just sitting quietly in the corner, not participating in the fight, This man got up and he said, I want to give my speaking slot to this person because he has better points that will really create an impact. As soon as this person said it, everyone in the audience really understood what they are doing. And then they kind of settled down and they started focusing on the goal. So many times in relationships, we tend to focus on our own role and forget the goal of the relationship. The moment you focus on your own role and make yourself the bigger picture, you lose the picture. You lose the bigger picture. And that's what creates disgusting individuals. Here is a story from an age-old epic named Ramayana. This is probably one of the oldest novels written in the history of mankind. Here's a story I'm going to tell. It doesn't matter if you don't know the context of the Ramayana, if you don't know anything about the Ramayana, but listen to the story. The story is relevant today. So there was a group of very specialized type of monkeys. They were called as vanaras. It's a very different species. So they had a goal of reaching on, jumping over an ocean. This was an 800-mile ocean that they all had to jump. There's a whole group of them on one side of the ocean. They had to reach the other side of the ocean and find Sita, who was kidnapped by a demon king. So now the question was, who's going to jump? Who's going to make it? So each one of them started talking about their own strengths. One of the Vanaras, he said, I can do 10 miles. Another said, I can do 20 miles. Another said, I can do 50 miles. Another said, I can do 200 miles. One said, I can do 500 miles. Finally, one of them said, I can do 800 miles. I can jump there, but no guarantee I can come back. What's the point in jumping that side if you can't come back? So all of them were dejected and very sad. They were just sitting around. One of them, whose name was Jambavan, he was a leader among all of them. He looked at each one, analyzing their strengths and weaknesses. And finally he saw one of them had not spoken at all. And that was Hanuman. Hanuman was sitting in one corner. He didn't even participate in the discussion, what he could do. Jambavan, he went up to Hanuman and started reminding Hanuman of his own powers. And as Jambavan was reminding Hanuman of his powers, Hanuman really became inspired. He started remembering his strength. He actually became even more powerful at that point. And then from that point onwards, the whole story of the Ramayana revolves around Hanuman being the hero. Throughout the story, from that point onwards, you read, Hanuman is the hero. He does practically everything that is impossible, he does it. The question is, Jambavan, who actually inspired Hanuman, after that, how many times his name comes in the Ramayana? Hardly 3 or 4 times. Now, from the world's point of view, Hanuman is the hero. But from Hanuman's point of view, who is the hero? Jambavan is the hero. He's the one who inspired him to become the hero, right? Each one of us need a Jambavan in our lives who can inspire us, remind us of our strengths and encourage us. That's what good relationships is meant for. But unfortunately today, what happens is, instead of Jambavan reminding Hanuman, Jambavan focuses on his own strengths and weaknesses. Just imagine if Jambavan was a project manager of today in some company and there was a big project to achieve, and Jambavan knows that Hanuman is the one who can do it and he can't do it, he's too old to do it. What would Jambavan of today do? Most people today, you know what they think of? They say, if I can't do it, then why should I inspire somebody else to do it? Forget Sita, forget the project. If I can't be the hero, no one else should be the hero. Unfortunately, people today focus on themselves and don't focus on the goal of the relationship. There are 3 ways to have relationships in life. The first way is known as dependence. There are some people who are so dependent on others that without the other person they can't do anything in their life. There are some people who live their entire life based on dependence. That means for them to go ahead in their life, they need somebody else to help them. If nobody else is there, they can't do anything. Then there are some people in life who live the life of independence. Independence means I don't need anyone. I can do everything on my own. I don't need anybody else to become successful in life. I don't care for anybody else. There are some people who like to live alone. In fact, the most successful people in life are lonely. The most successful people in life end up being very lonely. And I also tell this, the most talented people in life end up being lonely. So, one is dependence. That means without you, I can't live. And I can't do anything without you. That's like high level of dependence. Then there is independence. That means I don't care, I don't need anybody else. I can live on my own. The third is a mindset which is known as interdependence. Interdependence means I need you and you need me. I have some strengths, but I also have some weaknesses. You have some strengths, but you also have some weaknesses. When we come together, put our strengths and weaknesses together, and that's what makes relationships work. That's what is known as the concept of interdependence. Now I'm going to share with you all 4 very powerful concepts of relationships. These are called the 4 A's of relationships. Now, if you understand these 4 A's, your life and your relationships will go to another level. And after I tell you these 4 A's, you will tell me it's common sense. But the reality of today is, common sense is not so common. So therefore we have to give a seminar, on what is supposed to be common sense. These are simple things, but they are very profound and very effective things. The 4 A's of lasting relationships. The first A is known as acceptance. Acceptance means we need to learn to start accepting people as they are, rather than expecting them to become as we are. What we end up doing in relationships is, we tend to make the other person a photocopy of ourselves. Whatever like I have, that person also should have. Whatever dislikes I have, that person also should have. We expect the other person to actually think like us, act like us, be like us. Unfortunately, when we don't accept people as they are and expect them to become as we are, we're actually squeezing out people. The Mahabharata gives a very beautiful verse to explain this. And it's an amazing analogy. The Mahabharata says, all of us should be like a honeybee. I'm sure all of us have seen honeybees, right? Honeybees sit on flowers and suck nectar. So the honeybee sits on one flower, sucks a little nectar, then goes to the next flower, sucks a little more nectar, goes to the third flower, sucks a little more nectar. You will never find a honeybee sitting on one flower, sucking so much nectar that the flower dies. The honeybee will never do that. Because the honeybee is sensitive to the flower. Human beings are like flowers. They have nectar. That means they can offer us so much. But the question is, how much can we squeeze them? Unfortunately, rather than accepting people as they are, we tend to squeeze them and make them do things the way we want it to happen. Non-acceptance leads to negative emotions, and acceptance leads to positive emotions. The more we accept people as they are, the more peaceful the relationship is. And the more we push people with our expectations, the less peaceful the relationship is. So the first A in to make relationships last is acceptance. Learn to accept people the way they are. The second A for lasting relationships is known as appreciation. Appreciation should be done publicly and criticism should be done privately. Unfortunately, we end up criticizing people publicly and appreciating, if at all, privately. One word, good. That's all. That person has worked for like hours and hours and hours, and one word comes out from your mouth. Unfortunately, appreciation is not easy. Not at all easy. One time I was in an event like this, I was talking about relationships. Then I was talking about how important appreciation is. One old man got up. This man was like 75 or something. This man, he got up and he told me that I have been married to my wife for the last 50 years. We've lived together for 50 years. Just the fact that I'm living with her for 50 years, does it not mean that I'm appreciating her enough? Do I have to actually say it, He's asking me a question like that in public. So I told him, you have a brilliant smile. The moment I said that, this guy's smile became so big, like really so happy. I asked him, how did he feel? He said, good. He appreciated me, sir. I said, 75 years you have been smiling. After 75 years, I'm still appreciating your smile. You still feel good about it, right? The fact is, every human being needs appreciation. There was a survey done in corporates, and in the survey, they realized that one thing that every employee feels, that I do so much for the organization, but nobody appreciates me enough. And the one thing that every employer feels is, I do so much for my employees, but nobody appreciates me. Both ends, same problem, the lack of appreciation. The most important need for human beings is the need to feel appreciated. But what is appreciation? I mean, how do you do appreciation? There is a difference between flattery and appreciation. Most people, when they appreciate somebody else, they actually, what they end up doing is flattery. Flattery, it doesn't touch the heart. At max, it touches the mind. It touches the false ego. So when you flatter someone, that person feels, his ego grows. But when you genuinely appreciate someone, it actually touches the heart. How do you appreciate? For one to appreciate another person, the first thing is your eyes have to observe. Observe the actions and good qualities of the other person. Your heart has to feel. And then your mind has to analyze. And then your mouth has to speak. Only when you do this, it's actually called, when you appreciate somebody else, you have to sufficiently understand the qualities, the good qualities of the person, and then appreciate. If you can't do that, then it's not actually at all appreciation. It won't touch the heart. But if you can genuinely appreciate another person, it really, really touches the heart. And that appreciation encourages the relationship a lot. So the first A is acceptance. The second A is appreciation. The third A is a very important A, which is known as acknowledgement. Every person needs to be acknowledged in the relationship. A lot of times, we take people for granted. We just think that that person is there in my life. I mean, I don't have to do really anything more to acknowledge that person's existence. A lot of times, you take people for granted. When people don't feel acknowledged, they actually feel left out. I'll share a very interesting story. I live in a community in Bombay, in Mumbai, in India, which has about 5,000 people connected to it. There's a monastery which is connected with about 5,000 people in the community. So one man in the community raised an objection, or he wrote an email with a lot of complaints. So when this mail came to the management decided to first find out who this person was. And they found out that this person was not really anyone important. So they had two options. The first option is, forget it. What's the big deal? Some random guy is writing a mail complaining about the management, then what difference it makes? The second option was, try to find out what exactly he wants. They chose the second option and sent a very senior leader to go and sit with this man and find out what's his concern. So the senior person sat with this man for 2 hours, just hearing him. And this man was speaking so much negativity, on and on and on. After 2 hours, he left. Next day they met again for 2 hours. And again this man only complains and negativity. They met like this for almost 5 days consecutively, 2 hours each. On the 6th day when this man came, he started crying. He had tears in his eyes, literally crying. So, the question is, of course, after that he started only speaking a lot of positive things. The question is, what did these people do for him? Nothing. They just acknowledged him. They sat and heard him. A lot of times when people come to me with their problems, so I sit and hear them for an hour, sometimes 2 hours, sometimes 3 hours. And most of the times when people are speaking, I just sit and hear. After 2 hours they tell me, thank you very much, you solved our problem. Most of the time I've not even opened my mouth. But people feel that I've solved their problem. You know why? Because people don't need solutions to the problems of life. Most problems in life don't have a solution. A lot of problems in life have to be tolerated. A lot of problems in life have to be neglected. There are very few problems that actually have a solution. So when people share their problem with somebody else, you know what they expect? They don't expect the solutions to their problem. They expect somebody to understand their problem. When people feel understood, they feel valued. Acknowledgement is simply understanding what the other person is trying to go through in their own lives. That empathy, that understanding actually makes life so much more easier. So the first A is acceptance, the second A is appreciation, the third A is acknowledgement. If these 3 A's are not there, if you don't do these 3 A's in a relationship, then there's a fourth A that follows. This is known as alienation. Alienation means the person starts feeling that I'm living with an alien. That person speaks a different language, he doesn't understand what I am speaking, and I don't understand what that fellow is speaking. There are a lot of people who live together, husband and wife live together, but the wife, when she's speaking, she feels I'm speaking to a wall. The wall doesn't understand anything. They actually feel that they're from different worlds. You know, the other person is like an alien coming from a different world, speaks a different language, behaves differently, eats differently, lives differently. So, when does alienation come? Alienation comes when the first 3 A's are not practiced well. Acceptance, acknowledgement, and appreciation. If you don't follow these 3 A's properly, then the 4th A is surely going to come. People, as I said, the deepest need of a human being is the need to be heard and understood. So if you learn to hear and understand what the other person is experiencing, people actually feel very strongly connected. I'm sure all of us have experienced or learned communication skills in schools and colleges, right? I mean, every school and college teaches you communication skills. What is taught in communication skills? Reading skills, writing skills, and speaking skills. Hardly any communication class teaches you listening skills. The most important part of communication is listening. Why do we have 2 ears and 1 mouth? Ever thought about why do you have 2 ears and 1 mouth? So that you can hear more and speak less. Unfortunately, we end up speaking more and hearing less. And that causes most problems in relationships. And therefore, the ability to listen is such a crucial need in relationships. There are many types of listening. The first type of listening is known as spaced out listening. Spaced out listening essentially means you physically hear, mentally not hear. I don't know how many of you are doing that right now. Physically hear, I don't know where you are, an Eiffel Tower, Leaning Tower of Pisa, somewhere else. So, that's the first type of listening, spaced out listening. The second type of listening is known as pretend listening. Pretend listening means you actually pretend as if you're listening every word, but you're not listening at all. Like a father is reading a newspaper, and the child comes and he's telling everything about the previous day's school. And the father is saying, yes, go on. The child understands this guy is not hearing me at all. He's pretending to be hearing. I don't know if you have observed fishes in water tanks. Fishes have a very unique feature. They have transparent eyelids. Their eyelids are transparent. So if a fish is sleeping, you will not know the fish is sleeping. Why? The eyes seem to be open only all the time. So there are a lot of people who are like fishes. Their eyes are open, but they're sleeping eternally. So I've seen so many of such people in my classes many times. The third type of listening is a very interesting type of listening. It is known as selective listening. Selective listening means I only listen to those things that I want to listen to. I don't listen to everything. Very selective. I'll give you an example. There was a guy who used to go to a mosque every day for attending the prayers. So one day he just stopped coming. So the Maulvi, the priest, he got a little worried of why this person stopped coming. Very few people come regularly and this guy stopped coming. He went to his house to find out why you stopped coming. So he asked him, why did he stop coming? This guy said, I read in the Quran. In the Quran it was written, one should not go to the mosque. The Maulvi was surprised. He said, I have read the Quran so many times, I have never come across this sentence. Can you show me the sentence? This guy went and got his Quran and showed him. And actually the Maulvi saw it was written, one should not go to the mosque. But that was the last sentence on that page. It continued on the next page and it said, without washing one's hands and legs. This guy only read that much part and stopped. One should not go to the mosque. That's it. So this is known as selective listening. That means I only hear those things that I want to hear, that are useful to me basically. The most important type of listening is known as empathic listening. Empathic listening essentially means that when you listen to another person, you put yourself in the shoes of the other person and hear. You're not just hearing the words, but you're also hearing the feeling with which the words are spoken. When people share their hearts, when people speak their hearts, what they expect the other person to do, they don't expect the other person to solve the problems. They only expect the other person to understand their problem. Because when people feel understood, they actually feel very much connected to the other person. And therefore, listening is one of the most important attributes towards relationships. Unfortunately, why people can't listen? One of the biggest problems in our inability to listen is talent. I give talks in some of the biggest universities in the world. In India, there is a place known as the Indian Institute of Management, IIM. Now, getting an entry into IIM in India is next to impossible. Every year, at least about, how do you call it, 10 lakhs? 1 million people, literally. 1 million people answer exams to get into the IIMs. And only 1,000 people end up in the IIMs. That's the kind of numbers. And I conduct courses for these 1,000 people on a regular basis. And when I begin my courses, one of the first things I begin my sessions is by saying, talent is one of the most useless things you can have in life. I repeat it again. Talent is one of the most useless things you can have in life. When I say this, people get bewildered totally. Because for everyone, talent is the most important thing. You get the biggest opportunities in life if you're talented, right? But actually that's not a fact. There is something more important than talent in life, and that is good attitude. A lot of people who are highly talented, unfortunately don't have good attitudes. When you have talent, but you don't have good attitude, you end up being lonely. As I said in the beginning, one of the most talented people are also some of the most loneliest people in the world. I'll give you an example. I was speaking to a couple. They came to me, they were 6 months into the marriage, they wanted a divorce. Massive fights, you know. So I said, what happened? They said, we just can't get along, you know. I'll just give you a background of these people. The husband is IIT, IIM. From India, IIT is one of the biggest technical institutes in India, and IIM is one of the biggest management institutes in India. In India, if you have an IIT and IIM both combined degree, you're almost like a demigod, you know. That's the best you can get in India. So now, this guy was so talented. His wife was a pass out from ISB, again one of the best B schools in India. They got married. The wife is telling me, I can't live with this guy. I said, what happened? She's saying, this person, for him, everything is an Excel sheet. I said, what do you mean by everything in an Excel sheet? She's telling me, whatever I do for him, he writes it down. If I smile at his mother, he writes it down and puts a tick. Then he will smile at my mother and then put a tick, you know. If I get him a gift, he'll write it down and put a tick. Then he will get me a gift and, you know. He said, I can't. She's saying, I can't live with this person. For him, everything is an Excel sheet. So there are some people, very highly talented, but they just don't know how to have the right attitude to connect with others. There was another couple that came to me and they said, again, massive fights happening. I said, what happened? She said, the husband and wife were saying that the fights began on the first day itself. I said, how did you manage that? So in the morning, when the husband went to brush his teeth, he squeezed the toothpaste from the top. The wife said, why did you squeeze from top? You squeeze from below. The husband said, this is my style, I'll squeeze from top only. And that's how the first fight began. What difference it makes whether you squeeze from top or squeeze from below? Unfortunately, talent sometimes keeps you very far away from the realities of life and doesn't allow you the flexibility to adjust, flexibility to mold yourself and connect with one another in a deeper way. So therefore, more important than talent is good attitude. Talent opens the first door to success. Talent opens your second door to success. Talent opens your third door to success. But talent can never open the final door to success. The final door to success is always opened by good attitude. When they hire people in the Australian army, they check for the academic records. And if you have never had academic failure in your life, they don't hire you in the army. Can you imagine? One place, if you have failed, where there's a good chance you get an entry, is the Australian army. You know why they look for people who have failures, background of failures? Because suppose there is somebody who has never failed in his or her life and he gets into the army and comes across the first failure in the army, they will not know how to react. They will not know how to deal with the failure. And therefore, talent sometimes can help you solve a lot of problems in life. But good attitude can help you deal with relationships. And therefore, attitude really counts. And more contagious than good attitude is bad attitude. I'll give you an example. One time, there was a football stadium where thousands of people were sitting in the stadium. And 4 people started vomiting. So they made an announcement that there is food poisoning in the canteen, nobody should eat anything in the canteen. As soon as an announcement was made, 20 people started vomiting. And then they found out these 4 guys had not eaten in the canteen at all. They eaten somewhere else. But somehow the mind, that's how it is. The mind, it catches negative things faster than it catches positive things. And therefore, when it comes to people, there are a lot of bad attitudes that we carry in life. What are some of the bad attitudes? For example, hogging credit is the inability to appreciate another person. Always wanting to say things, always wanting to be right. There are a lot of people who carry such bad attitudes in relationships. People like to be Superman or Superwoman. It's good to see Superman or Superwoman on the television. But in real life, you don't want to live with a Superman or Superwoman. You want to live with normal humans. And there are some people who love to be Superman or Superwoman. They have answered to every question. Before you ask the question only, they will tell you answer. Who wants to live with such people? All the time, talking about themselves, all the time trying to hog the credit, hog the limelight. There was a man who went to a hotel, to a restaurant. Indian context of hotel is. So this man went to a waiter and he asked him, do you have any solution for hiccups? This waiter said, wait a minute. He bent down, picked up a mop on the ground and he hit this floor on his face. This guy said, why did you hit me? He said, see, your hiccups are gone. He's gone. This guy said, I didn't have hiccups. My wife sitting in the car outside has hiccups. Before understanding the problem only, there are some people who want to give a solution. This is a good example of bad attitudes in life. So when you carry a lot of bad attitudes in life, you end up being very judgmental. That's one of the biggest, or rather the worst attitude of life. So that means, what is the meaning of being judgmental? Being judgmental is about putting labels on people. We end up trying to put labels on every person. You go into a gathering and immediately start looking at people and start labeling them. Unfortunately, such labeling takes away strength in relationships. The Mahabharata talks about a very interesting story. There's a story about 2 students. There's a teacher named Drona, and Drona once called 2 of his disciples. He called one of his disciples, his name was Duryodhana. He told him, I want to give you a test. He said, go into the kingdom, meet as many people as you want, and find at least one person who is better than you. This man went out, traveled all over the kingdom, met thousands of people, and he came back and he said, I'm sorry, I couldn't even find one person better than me. Because every person I met had one fault which I didn't have. And he actually had a list of all the names and all the faults that they had. Then Drona called a second student, his name was Yudhishthira, and he told him, I want you to go into the kingdom and find out at least one person who is worse than you. So Yudhishthira went out, he met thousands of people and he came back. And he said, I'm sorry, I couldn't even find one person worse than me. Because every person I saw had one good quality which I didn't have. Look at this. These 2 people went into the same kingdom. One person only found faults in others, and the other person only found good in others. The question is, are people good or are people bad? For us to be able to understand this, let's see a small video that will help us understand this concept a little deeper. I hope you can see whatever you can. Can you see?
Yeah.
Can you put it louder? Right.
No, there's. Okay, so I'm not even here. Right. Great lady. The princess of parking. Sure. Take the spot. What to be considered? Oh. Kidding me? Unbelievable. Oh. Thank you, man. It's about time. Let's see, what do I want? Yeah, can I add a cookie to that order? Yeah, no problem. Yeah, no problem, only guy in the world. I'm sure you need your cookies. Your oyster, and he's serving you a cookie. Thank you so much. I'll take it for you. Yeah, I'll take it. Yeah. Sure, no problem. For $3.85. And it might take a few minutes here. We've got quite a line, obviously, and thanks for your patience. Great. Yeah, great. Great for me. Win it again. Unbelievable. What? What? What is that? What in the world? What? What am I supposed to do? How can I do anything about that? Can I even help with that? I don't. Your copy, sir. I can't take this anymore. I gotta get out of here. Hey, what? Hey, buddy, come here.
So the idea is, most of us, we are very conditioned to judge others. Our mindset is conditioned in such a way, the moment you look at somebody, you start putting labels. You start passing judgments. You start, making some kind of a mental assessment of people. But the reality is, human beings, what they are, you will never know unless you really connect with them on a deeper level. You will never know the struggles each person is going through. On an external level, you might be able to judge or put a label on a person. But how can you actually understand what a person is going through and why a person is behaving in a certain way? And therefore, it is very important to prepare yourself for relationships. For everything in life, we prepare ourselves, right? For getting into a university or a school, we prepare ourselves. getting into jobs, for interviews, we prepare ourselves. For practically for every aspect of life, there's a lot of preparation that goes in. But when we get into a relationship, do we actually prepare ourselves? How much do we really prepare for getting into relationships? Most people assume that they are prepared for relationships, and they don't really work on themselves, to get into relationships. So there is something known as a lens principle, which says who you are is determined what you see or who you see is determined by who you are. When you look at people, people are actually a reflection of who you are yourself. When you look at somebody say that that person is very critical, maybe you're the one who is critical. When you look at somebody who is very, very, unkind, maybe there is some kind of unkindness within you. When you look at people, it's actually a reflection of your own needs and interests. Let me give you an example. There was an old man who was standing at the entrance of a village, and a traveler just happened to come into that village. And he met this old man, and he asked him, "How are the people in this village?" The old man asked him a question. He said, "How are the people in the village you came from?" This traveler said, "The most stupid people in the world. Very, very cruel, very unkind people. Just cannot get along with them." The old man said, "Same here." This man felt very bad and he went in. After some time, another traveler came by and stopped near the same old man. And he asked him, "How are the people in this village?" The old man asked him the same question. "How are the people in the village you came from?" And this traveler said, "They are the most kind, loving and most beautiful people I ever met." The old man said, "Same here." Same old man, he's talking about the same people. But he's talking from two different angles. Why? Because who you are determines what you see. Who you are determines how you see life. There was a small boy who wanted to play a trick on his grandfather. His grandfather was sleeping on an easy chair, rocking chair, and he was taking a snooze. So this small child, he walked up to the grandfather. He took along with him old smelly cheese and put it on the mustache of the grandfather. And he went and hid. The grandfather got up after some time and he started smelling. He said, "This room is stinking today." He went to the next room. He said, "This room was stinking." He went all around the house. He said, "The whole house is stinking." He went outside the house. He said, "The whole world is stinking today." Where was the stink? Below his nose. So who you are determines how you see life. There are good people and there are bad people. Actually, every human being has good and bad in him or her. There are 5 ways to look at this. The first way is, there are people who look at a little bad in a person and magnify it like anything. And they only look at the bad in the person. The second way is, people see the good and the bad and magnify the bad more. The third way is, you look at good and bad and emphasize both equally. The fourth way is, you look at good and bad, emphasize the good more. And the fifth way is, you don't look at the bad at all. Only look at the good and emphasize the good. Of course, we cannot be I don't think any of us are the first way. We look at only bad people and magnify it. I definitely don't think we are the last category, that we only look at good and magnify it. We fall somewhere between the 2, 3 and 4. The idea is, slowly start going from 2 to 3 and if possible to 4. That means, start looking at people, see the good and bad in them and try to magnify the good more than the bad. And that's how we can actually make relationships work. There are 2 ways of looking at people. One is the housefly way and the second is the honeybee way. If you've seen a housefly, you know what the housefly does? The housefly, if you send a fly into a garden, a beautiful garden, the fly will find a piece of dirt and sit on it. The fly will never sit on all the flowers, the beautiful flowers, it will never sit on all the beautiful things. It will find a piece of dirt and sit on it. And the honeybee mindset is, if the honeybee sees unlimited amount of dirt garbage, it will find a flower and sit on it. The question is, do we want to be like honeybees or do we want to be like flies? If we want to be like honeybees, then in the heap of all the garbage that exists in people, find one good quality and sit on it. There is something known as the FNC formula of how to make relationships work. F stands for focus on the good. There was a very successful gold miner who was interviewed, and the interviewer asked him a question, what is the secret of his success? And he gave a very interesting answer. He said, when I dig for gold, I don't look for dirt. Very interesting. Because in a gold mine, when they dig, they get heaps and heaps of dirt. And then one small gram of gold in the millions of kilos of dirt. So his answer was, when I dig for gold, I don't look for dirt. In people, there is unlimited amount of dirt in them. But there is one small speck of gold. Focus on that gold. Focus on the good. The second is, neglect the bad. No one is perfect. Each one of us have some idiosyncrasies. Each one of us have some defects. No one is made absolutely perfect. When we focus on those defects in people, we can't look at the good qualities in them. Therefore, F stands for focus on the good. Second, N stands for neglect the bad. And third, C stands for cultivate appreciation. There was a zoo in which there were a lot of kids who had gone to the zoo to watch all the animals. And there was one stall in that zoo where they painted faces of kids, animal faces basically. There's a big line of many children standing to get their face painted. There was one boy standing in that line and a boy standing behind him, and he just passed a random comment. He said, why do you have to get your face painted? It's already painted. You look like a panther. Because this boy had freckles all over his face. You know? His boy said, you have so many freckles, you look like a panther. So this boy felt really hurt. He ran to his grandmother, started crying like anything, and he told her what happened. The grandmother looked at the boy and she told him, don't you know, freckles are the most beautiful things in God's creation. The moment the grandmother said that, his boy started smiling. He told her, no, there is something more beautiful than freckles. She said, what? He said, wrinkles. Because the grandmother's face was filled with wrinkles. You know? The question is, between wrinkles and freckles, which is more beautiful? Neither. But because the grandmother could see something good in him, the boy could see something good in her. That's what appreciation is about. So, focus on the good, neglect the bad, and cultivate appreciation. This is what relationships thrive on. A very important factor in relationships is the way we look at relationships. Unfortunately, when we connect with people, we tend to compare them with ourselves. One of the most disastrous things you can do in a relationships is comparison. I'm going to give you a very interesting example. Here is a plant which is known as a garden fern. I'm sure you have seen it. If you plant the seed of a garden fern, within 3 months the plant grows to a full height. It's about this big. It can't grow more than that. It takes about 3 months for it to grow into a full-fledged plant. There's another very interesting plant which is known as the Chinese bamboo. The Chinese bamboo is a very interesting plant for many reasons. When you plant the seed of a Chinese bamboo, when you spend about 1 month watering this plant, nothing grows out of the ground. 2 months, nothing grows. 3 months, nothing grows. 6 months, nothing grows. 1 year, absolutely nothing grows out. 2 years, nothing grows. 3 years, absolutely nothing grows. Can you imagine 3 years you're watering the plant and nothing grows out of the ground? After 3 years, in 3 weeks, this plant grows to 100 feet in height. The question is, when you compare the Chinese bamboo with the garden fern, which you think is better? The garden fern or Chinese bamboo? You can't compare, they're different. The Chinese bamboo has some strengths, but there are some weaknesses also. The garden fern has some strengths, but it also has some weaknesses. Each human being is unique. In fact, each creation is unique in this world. The more you start comparing yourself, the more you actually start becoming miserable. Unfortunately, our expectations are way higher than the realities of life. The bigger the gap between expectation and reality, the more miserable you are. Unfortunately, today's world is designed in such a way that it increases the gap between expectation and reality. When people look at the television all the time, advertisements, movies, all that, what do you find in the movies? What do you find in the ads? You always find perfection, right? But in reality, do you find perfection? When you look at yourself in the mirror, do you find anywhere close to perfection? No. The reality is there's no perfection in reality. The reality is a lot of imperfections. So what we end up doing is when we keep watching these movies and keep watching these advertisements, we start expecting perfection and we start going far away from the realities of life. The bigger the gap between expectation and reality, the more miserable you are. And therefore, acceptance makes you emotionally tranquil, and non-acceptance makes you emotionally agitated. The more you accept the realities of life, the more peaceful you are. Let me give you some examples. Whenever there is uncertainty in life, any kind of uncertainty, whenever there is uncertainty, it leads to what is known as fear. When you don't accept that uncertainty, it leads to fear. But the moment you accept that uncertainty, it's no more called fear, it's called adventure. Bungee jumping. There is so much uncertainty. But the moment you accept that uncertainty, it's not called fear anymore. It's called adventure. So in life, anything that is dealt with acceptance is a positive emotion. And anything that is dealt with non-acceptance is a negative emotion. For example, if somebody has more than what you have, or somebody has the ability to do things that you can't do, when you don't accept it, if you deal with it with non-acceptance, what happens? You become envious and jealous of that person. But the moment you accept it, what happens? That person becomes your inspiration. Anything that is dealt with acceptance is a positive emotion, and anything that is dealt with non-acceptance is a negative emotion. For example, if somebody has insulted you or shouted at you like anything, and if you are not able to accept it, what happens? It becomes hatred. You start hating that person. The moment you accept it, what happens? Instead of hatred, it becomes forgiveness. You let go. You forgive that person. And therefore, it is very important in life to learn to be happy, peaceful, contented, rather than start comparing ourselves constantly with others and being miserable. There are two ways to be unhappy in life. I'm sure you would have heard a lot of ways to be happy in life. I'm sharing with you 2 ways how you can be unhappy in life. And I can guarantee you, if you do these 2 things, you will surely be unhappy. So try it out. The 2 ways to be unhappy in life are, the first way is, try to make everybody happy. If you try to make everybody happy, there will be one person who is unhappy, that will be you. If Jesus Christ, Krishna, could not try to make everybody happy, what is the guarantee you and me will do it? There are some people who want to make everyone happy. And in the process of trying to make everyone happy, they make their own life very miserable. The second way to be unhappy in life, so the first way is, try to make everybody happy. The second way to be unhappy in life is, try to make everybody happy with you. So if you try to make everybody happy with you, if 99 people are happy with you, and one person is unhappy with you, you will be unhappy. Like there was a boy who made his first YouTube video, put it up. The next day, there were 99 likes and 1 dislike. This guy started crying. I said, what happened? He said, why this one person didn't like my video? I said, come on, 99 people liked it. What's your problem? He said, no. Why this one person didn't like it? It was miserable. This is the problem with people who try to make everybody happy with them. So, the idea of happiness is that we should try to be happy with ourselves, independent of whether others are happy with us or not. How do you actually become happy with yourself? how do you actually start loving yourself? Simple. Most people, they try to impress others with their looks, with the way they dress, with their hairstyle, with the way they speak, and so on and so forth. Now, till you do something substantial in life, people keep looking at you and making all these judgments. But once you do some powerful contribution in life, nobody cares how you look. Just think about it. Look at some of the most powerfully influential people in the world in terms of who have really touched people's hearts. Look at Mother Teresa, Mahatma Gandhi, Srila Prabhupada. Look at Nelson Mandela. Look at so many of these people who have really created impact and touched people's hearts. Are they really beautiful to look at externally? No. I mean, there's absolutely no sign of beauty in many of these people. But who cares? Their contribution is so powerful that nobody cares how you look. Till you do something substantial, people keep looking at you. But once you do something substantial, nobody looks at you. They look at your contribution. And therefore, to be happy in life, we have to focus not on externals, but on the way we contribute to society, on what we're actually doing for the world. And that's what really leaves us satisfied. The seventh secret of lasting relationship, this is the last thing I'll leave you all with. It's a very important thought. I'm going to share with you all a story from the Ramayana. It's a very powerful story. It will make you think. This section of the Ramayana happens when Ram, Lakshmana and Sita are in the forest for almost 13 years. And one day, Sita happens to see a golden deer. It's a fascinating creature, beautiful, shining gold. The skin of the deer is actually made of gold. So she looks at her husband Ram and tells him that I want this deer. So Ram tells her, fine, I'll get it. He goes away. He tells Lakshman, you stay back. So Lakshman is his brother. He tells him, stay back and guard Sita, protect Sita, I'll come back. So Ram goes running behind the golden deer. When he goes a little away, he comes to know that it's not a deer, it's actually a demon who's disguised as a deer. So Ram shoots an arrow, kills the demon. And while the demon is dying, the demon, in the voice of Ram, calls out to Lakshman and Sita for help. And he dies. In the meanwhile, Sita and Lakshman, they hear the voice of Ram calling out for help. Sita tells Lakshman, go and help your brother. Lakshman looks at her, tells her, relax. This is not the voice of my brother. I know his voice very well. This is a demon who is in the voice of my brother speaking. Now Lakshman is very confident about Ram, confident about his brother. But Sita is very concerned about Ram, about her husband's protection, safety. So she keeps pushing him, no, you should go and find, you should go and look at him, see if he's fine. Lakshman tells her, don't worry, Ram has told me to take care of you, I have to stay here. Sita really pushes him like anything and she gets angry. Now, when she is really angry, she speaks something that hurts Lakshman. So when there's a conflict, so Sita is concerned about Ram and Lakshman is confident about Ram. Both of them are in two different mindsets in the same event, same situation. Conflict arises when two people think differently about the same event or the same situation. So Sita, to push him, she speaks something really harsh. Now, just to give you the context, this part of the story happens after 13 years of their exile. So for 13 long years, Lakshmana has sacrificed everything for these two people. He has given up the company of his wife, he has given up the comforts of the palace, he has given up so much to be with these two people and help them. After 13 years, Sita makes this accusation. She tells Lakshman, I know why you are here with us. You are waiting for a chance that Ram goes away so that you can enjoy me. Can you imagine? She doubts his character. Lakshman feels so hurt. He tells her, I'm going away from here, but I know for sure when I come back, you won't be here. He walks away. And then when he reaches Ram, Ram asks him, what are you doing here? I told you to take care of Sita. And then they come back and find Sita is missing. Ram starts blasting Lakshman like anything. He said, you are useless. The only thing I told you to do, you can't do it. You have no competence at all. Look at the situation. Two people whom he loves the most, one is doubting his character and one is doubting his competence. If you are in an organization where your character and competence is doubted, will you continue there? No one will dare to continue there. if anybody else was in Lakshman's place, they would have said, hell with both of you all, I'm going back home. He would have packed up his bag and gone back. But Lakshman continued staying with them and continued being with them even after this. The question is, what inspired Lakshman to continue in a relationship in spite of going through such an insult, such a tough phase? 30 years of relationships can get broken in 30 seconds if you don't know this secret, if you don't know what Lakshman did. Lakshman did what I call as press the pause button. When Sita spoke those words, he pressed the pause button and he asked himself a question. The question he asked himself was, does Sita actually mean what she spoke? And the answer that he got from within his heart was no. Her concern for Ram is coming out in the form of these words. She doesn't mean it, but she's concerned about her husband, and therefore she spoke these words just to make me do something. Then when Ram spoke those words, again he pressed the pause button and he asked himself the same question. Does Ram mean what he spoke? And the answer that he got from within his heart was no. His concern for Sita is coming out in the form of these words. He doesn't really mean it. The question is, when we come across situations of life like this, and we definitely come across such situations, the hurt is not the most when some stranger insults us or some stranger passes a comment. The hurt is the most when the person we love the most insults us or speaks something such harsh. The question was, what inspired Lakshman to press the pause button in these two critical situations of life? When we are in such situations of life, forget pressing the pause button. Most of the time, we don't even know where the remote control is. The moment somebody speaks something like this, we're ready to slash that person away, right? What inspired Lakshman to press the pause button? One thought. This was a thought of gratitude. The one thought that helped Lakshman was, Lakshman thought, 25 years Sita has deposited love in this relationship, and now she has made one mistake or one withdrawal. Should I forget to be grateful for the 25 years of love and focus on this one mistake that she made? That one thought of gratitude helped Lakshman press the pause button. And when Ram spoke those words, again the same thought of gratitude. 40 years Ram has deposited love in this relationship, and now he has made one mistake or one withdrawal. Should I forget to be grateful for the 40 years of love and focus on this one mistake? Unfortunately, people, when they come across such situations in life, they forget the whole past series of positive experiences are erased, and people focus on that one negative experience, right? The question is, how do we press the pause button in our own lives? The quality of my communication to the world outside determines my success, but the quality of my communication to the world inside determines my happiness. I'll tell you another story. It's a very interesting story. This is the same story in a modern context. There was a lady who went to a mall with her daughter, and the daughter was crying like crazy. This lady is looking at her daughter, she's saying, Jennifer, relax. The daughter kept crying more and more and more. This lady looked at her daughter and said, Jennifer, don't react, relax. The daughter was crying even more and more and more. The lady is saying, Jennifer, don't create a scene over here, relax. There was an old man who was observing this whole thing. He walked up to this lady and he told her, ma'am, don't you think you're talking a language that is too adult-like? Why don't you talk a more child-friendly language? That lady looks at him and tells him, what makes you think I'm talking to her? Jennifer is my name. I'm telling myself, relax. A lot of problems, a lot of times in life, there is nothing that we can do about what others do or say. But we definitely can do a lot about what we do or say. Therefore I said the quality of my communication of the world outside determines my success, but the quality of my communication of the world inside determines my happiness. In relationships, for relationships to last, we need to learn to start communicating with ourselves. That's what is known as responding. Reacting means you do something. That means if somebody speaks something harsh to you, you instantly react without thinking. You speak or do and then think what you did. Most people feel guilty later. And by that time, it's too late. The second way is respond. That means before you do anything, think and then do. These are two ways to look at life. One is the soda can way. You've seen a bottle of soda can, Sprite or soda, you shake it up like anything, and then you open it, what happens? Everything inside comes out, right? There are many people who deal with life like this. When life shakes them up, what happens? Everything inside comes out. They blast like anything. The second way to deal with life is a water bottle way. Obviously, water. You shake a water bottle how much ever you want. You keep it and open it, what happens? Nothing happens. When life shakes you up and you keep it, the best way to react is what we call as the responding way. That is the water bottle way. So these are some thoughts on relationships. Therefore, the idea of relationship is, relationships are something where we need to really focus on our own mindset. It's not only what the other person does, it's also about how we do and how we think. Just quickly recapping what we spoke. We started by talking about how whether we look at a relationship as a tool or as a goal. For most people who look at relationship as a tool, they think of using and throwing. When people look at relationship as a goal, it's not something to just use, but it's something that we are looking from a long-term point of view. And that's what lasting relationship is about. The second thing we spoke about is the 4 A's of relationships. Anybody remembers which the 4 A's are? Acceptance, appreciation, acknowledgement, alienation. So if first 3 A's don't happen, then the 4th A comes, which is alienation. Then we spoke about talent versus attitude. We spoke about sometimes how talent is one of the most useless things you can possess, because without good attitude, no matter how talented you are, relationships don't survive. And therefore, to make relationships survive, you actually need more than talent, you need good attitudes. And then we spoke about how important it is not to judge, but look at people from a broader perspective. When we judge people, we tend to label them. But actually every human being has a good and bad side in them. So the more you look at the good side and the less you focus on the bad side, that much better it is. As I said, we spoke about the FMC formula. Focus on the good, neglect the bad, and C is cultivate appreciation. Then we spoke about how one needs to prepare for relationships. Here we spoke about the 2 sides. There is good in people and there is bad in people. The more we focus on the good and the less we focus on the bad, that much better it is for us, for the relationship. And then we spoke about how one should be happy with yourself. Here we spoke about the importance of not comparing. Each individual is created unique, and rather than comparing ourselves with other people and these unhealthy comparisons destroying relationships, one needs to start learning to be comfortable with who he or she is. When you start becoming comfortable with who you are, then you focus on contributing. And we spoke about these 2 ways to be unhappy in life. The first way, as I said, is try to make everybody happy. The second way is try to make everybody happy with you. Instead of doing that, the best way to live life is try to live life in such a way that you're focusing on your contribution. So when you focus on contribution, people don't look at you at all. What do they look at? They look at what you are doing, the impact that you're creating. And therefore, then comparisons don't happen. And finally, we spoke about the last thing for lasting relationship, which is react or respond. Here we spoke about the story of Lakshman and pressing the pause button, and then we spoke about the story of Jennifer Relax. Thank you very much. Any quick questions or comments at this point? Yes?
I have 2 if can I?
Yeah, please.
I would like to, if you can tell us a little bit, just a little bit more about how to use this press the pause button.
How to use
this button. So I guess, as I understood, is grounded on gratefulness.
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah.
or
So the thing is, in a relationship, the idea of pause button, I'm just kind of broadening it a little bit. In any relationship, relationships don't evolve instantly. It takes time. It's a cultivation. Just like a plant, for it to grow, it doesn't grow in one day. It takes time. Anything that is natural takes time. Anything that is unnatural is quick, right? So when you're looking at something that is sustainable for a long period of time, you're talking about a relationship that is sustainable for a long period of time, it takes time and effort to cultivate. The question is, when it takes time and effort to cultivate, most of the times that effort to cultivate is something that most people are ready to invest on. But once the plant grows to a certain extent, you start expecting it to produce fruits immediately. Right? So that's where one needs to be really careful to guard the plant, to protect the plant from all kinds of attacks. And some of these attacks come in the form of assumptions, some of these attacks come in the form of insult, some of these attacks come in different ways basically. So when we know that the plant is just growing, we need to really protect it till it grows into a full-fledged tree. Once it grows into a full-fledged tree, nobody can shake it, nobody can disturb it. But for it to grow, it needs to be really protected. And some of these attacks, like insult or some of these, they come as destructive forces basically. And that's why one has to be really careful and introspective. So pressing the pause button essentially means, before you end up destroying the relationship, think how important it is for you. Think how much time and energy investment you have put into the relationship. And think how positive it has been for you all this while. You understand? When you make assumptions, you actually destroy the relationship. And when you make accusations, allegations, insults, you start destroying the relationship. And therefore, before words come out of your mouth, one has to think. That's what responding is. Reacting means just don't think, because you're not thinking from a long-term point of view. You're only thinking from now. Just like, I'll just give you another example. Just like if you're going on a highway, fast moving car on a highway. You're in the right direction and you're in the right lane. And a big black truck comes from front. The truck is on the wrong lane, and it's coming straight towards you. What would you do? What do you think you would do?
Avoid.
You adjust, somehow avoid banging the truck. You go ahead, another truck comes. What do you do? Same thing, again avoid. You keep going, and every 5 minutes one truck is coming. The 20th truck comes, what do? Again you avoid, right? What if somebody says, how long, why I should adjust all the time? Let that fellow adjust now. You go straight and bang the truck. And then you land up in the hospital, and somebody comes and asks you, what happened? And you say, I was right, he was wrong. What difference it makes whether you are right or he was right? The question is, you landed up in the hospital. When it comes to limitations of traffic on the road, the question that you ask is not whose mistake it is. The question that you ask is whose life it is. Similarly, in relationships also, there is always a limitation in the traffic on the road of relationships. There are some people who are mature and there are some people who are immature. The question that you should be asking is not whose mistake it is. The question is whose life it is. If you value your life, if you value the relationship, adjust. And now the question is, you can't ask how many times you adjust. It's your life. You value your life, you value the relationship, you adjust. Over a period of time, people do understand. Initially, people are impatient, but over a period of time, people do understand. And if somebody is just not going to understand, then the relationship doesn't have any meaning at all. Right? Over a period of time, people do mature and understand. Maturity is very important. And whoever is more mature should take the relationship really, in the right direction. Make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
What do you do if you went that far that you destroyed the relationship? What can you do to make it better? Like if you do some.
Anyway, I do a whole seminar on this topic. Yeah. It's called the art of forgiveness. A very powerful tool in relationships is forgiveness. Unfortunately, people carry grudges in their heart and they hold these grudges for long periods of times. They're just not able to let go. Yes, people do make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. Right? But the question is, when certain relationships are very important to you in your life, and you see people making mistakes, and if you feel the relationship is very important for you, you have to learn to let go also. You have to learn to forgive. You have to learn to let go of our hatred, our resentment, our negativity in our hearts. I'll tell you a very powerful story. It's not a story, it's actually a fact. In India, there is a place, a very interesting place. India is filled with such crazy places, but this place is probably the craziest of crazy ones. There's a place in India called Varanasi. It's also called Kashi. The understanding in the Indian faith is that anybody who dies in Kashi, who gives up his life, body in Kashi, that person goes to the spiritual world, gets perfection of his life, basically. A lot of people in India plan their death in such a way that they die in Kashi. Can you believe it? In fact, there is a guest house in Kashi which is known as Kashi Labh Mukti Bhavan. People go there to that guest house to die. The problem is that you only get 2 weeks to die. So that from the day you check in 2 weeks if you don't die you have to check out. So people plan their death to such perfection. Exactly 2 weeks before they are dying, they go there and check in. And 2 weeks, somehow they die also. There was a manager of that guest house who has seen 12,000 deaths in front of his eyes. 12,000 deaths. And this guy speaks his realization after seeing so many people dying in that guest house. He says, one thing that I have seen, nobody on their deathbed wants to carry a grudge in his heart. They want to drop their grudges before dying. And he speaks a story. There was a man who checked in, 12, 13 days before. On the 13th day, he called his brother. And he said, please come here, I want to talk to you. Brother came. And he hugged his brother. He said, please forgive me. Let's let go of this fight. You won't believe it. These brothers, they have not been speaking to each other for 25 years. 25 years they have not spoken to each other a single word. They have partitioned their house. There's a big wall in the middle of the house. And that family doesn't speak to this family. 25 years. One day before his death, he calls his brother and tells him, forgive me. And of course, the next day he died. But the point is, this manager, his realization, his understanding is, if only this fellow had let go 25 years before, his life would have been so much more peaceful for 25 years. But this guy held on to it till the time of his death. So yes, sometimes when we go through bad experiences and when we have let down people tend to hold those grudges and it put in their heart. It affects them, it affects us. The best way to learn to live life is to learn to let go and forgive and go ahead. So when you forgive, you have two options. One is you renew the relationship. The second is you let go of the relationship. There are some relationships after forgiveness, they are worth renewing. That means you start reviving the relationship all over again. There are some relationships after forgiveness, it's worth letting go. So you should know which ones to let go and which ones to revive. Relationships that are going to really create more complications and heartbreaks, it's better to let go. And relationships that are worth renewing, it's better to focus and work on it again. But before that, importance is to forgive. Make sense? Yeah. Yes.
How to lead a team more on contribution?
How to focus more on contribution?
Yes, because when there is a team, it's a lot of doing with people. They satisfy their needs, that they feel happiness, etc. How to do less this and more on contribution, like you say in the lecture.
So the point over there is people tend to focus on externals more rather than focus on the goal. Happiness that comes from externals is not a lasting happiness. It's flickering. Anything that comes based on external situations, external circumstances, is not going to last for too long. if you're looking for long-term happiness, if you're looking for long-term sustenance, you need to look at something more deeper, more internal, basically. Which is what satisfaction and contentment is about, you know. There is something known as public victory, which is what the world thinks about you. Then there is something known as private victory, which is what you think about yourself. So we need to balance both. You need to balance public victory, that's also important. More important than that is private victory. So when you look at focusing on that aspect of, you know, you're not doing it just because you want the world to appreciate you or something like that. You're doing it because it gives you happiness, it gives you satisfaction, it gives you contentment. And then you have a whole team that is focused on the same goal. They are not focused on, you know, their own egos, but they're focused on that contribution, you know, as a focus. That's the team that really produces results and works. Make sense?
I don't know if I understand that. So more focus on, you say?
The inner satisfaction.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, because see, when we're talking about contribution, what is contribution? Contribution on an external level has to bring satisfaction on an internal level. When you do something and it doesn't bring you satisfaction, what's the point in doing it? You understand?
Understand, yeah.
So when you do something on an external level, it has to bring satisfaction on an internal level. It has to bring contentment on an internal level. That is when you realize that doing on an external level is worth it. So most people keep doing on an external level a lot, but they don't realize internally they're not happy. Internally it's not bringing them contentment. Therefore you find some of the biggest, the most successful CEOs, the most successful business leaders committing suicide. Why? They have been focusing on external growth. Somehow they forgot to look inside, whether they're actually going in the right direction. You understand? I mean, have you ever seen beggars committing suicide? Never. You'll find most successful people committing suicide. Because they climb the ladder of success, but when they reach the top, they realize that they don't have the key to happiness. They've forgotten the key to happiness somewhere below. Successful, unhappy. What's the point? Make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Regarding this question, I would like just to ask, you said they forgot to look in themselves.
Yeah.
So that was the reason why they were just focusing on external things.
See,
I think we have a problem looking in ourselves and talking to ourselves.
See, the problem with looking internally is for that you have to pause. You have to take a break and, you know, calculate, analyze. Unfortunately, people keep themselves so busy, they don't have time to pause and think. And therefore, you always end up in the wrong direction. Therefore, in life, there are two things important. One is a clock, which tells you the time, you know, keep running, keep running, keep running. But more important than the clock is a compass, which tells you which direction to run. So most people use the clock a lot. Unfortunately, nobody looks for the compass first. So the more you use the clock, you reach further from your destination, basically. So at some point, you realize that I've run fast, but I've run in the wrong direction. Make sense?
Yes. We're used to the terms of our ladder of success is leaned on the wrong wall.
Wrong wall. Exactly. Great. It's been a pleasure and honor to be talking to all of you all. I hope some of what I said made sense to you all. As I said, we have some books at the back. Most of these books are based on thoughts that I have been speaking to all of you. So if you want to really deepen these thoughts and, you know, go a little more broader and deeper into these thoughts, you're most welcome to have these books with you. These books essentially are written in a language that anybody can understand. You don't have to really have the background of scriptures to understand it. It will resonate a lot with your thoughts. It will resonate a lot with the style at which I have been speaking and the content which I have been speaking. Thank you very much. I'm very, very happy and grateful to be with all of you all. Especially grateful to the organizers, you know, for having organized this. Saraswati and Prabhuji here. We're very, very grateful, and it's been an absolute pleasure to be with you. Thank you. Yes, thank you.
As we said,
Still in progress.
as jaz bi se rada zahvalila v bistvu celemu timu, ki je prispel k temu. Tomi, Luka, Klemen, Ananta Prabhu in ostali, ki sedijo za celim film dogodkom. In hvala vsem, ki so prišli in nas podprli in upam, da se vidimo še naprej. In zdaj bomo v bistvu pripravili, dokler pripravljamo mizo, kjer se lahko ogledate knjige in tudi dobite njegov podpis. Mogoče, če imate kakšno intimno vprašanje ali privatno, lahko pristopi do njega in to vprašanje. Maybe you can, if they have some private or more intimate questions, they can come up to you.
Absolutely.
Hvala vsem.